Hi, I'm Crystallian, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the newly released Druid. I'm going to be going through all of the stuff, and if you want to have a chat with me about it outside of YouTube, you can come find me on Twitch. So let's start then. We've got Cantrips. You have 3 new ones as a Druid. You've got yourself Shillelagh, which turns your weapon into a 1d8 Wisdom modifier, which means you have attack and damage done as Wisdom. It works on only a club or staff. Of course, there's no reason why you'd ever use it with a staff. You should always have a club and a shield. Yeah, next one, Thorn Whip. This is kind of pointless. The intention behind it is that if you are underneath someone shooting at you from above, you can pull them off the roof or ledge or whatever, and they take full damage. Make sure you don't pull them onto you, you will also take damage. And you can also miss with it, so it is, generally speaking, kind of pointless. Produce Flame is the third. It lasts for 100 turns, which is a nice long time. And unfortunately, it's like holding on to a Fire Blast. It is an intellect modifier, which means you have to use your intellect to both throw it and damage with it. Of course, you're not going to have much intellect because you're a druid. That said, the only really useful thing for it is that it does persist in shape. And so that if you are doing a wild shape based build and you want to go around and punch things in the dark, as in the dark of the Underdark, or any building that happens to be covered by shadows and you're fighting at disadvantage, Produce Flame will make sure that you are never punching things at disadvantage. You also have Resistance, which we ignore, Poison Spray, which we also ignore, and Guidance, which is quite handy for going around town. It does have a concentration check, which means that unfortunately pretty much everything you have as a druid has a concentration check, which is not very good. But yes, it's better to have this from another character cast on you rather than, you know what I mean. So the spell list, we have a couple of new ones. Unfortunately, you have Animal Friendship, as expected. Speak with Animals, also as a spell. Unfortunately, these things are spells, which means you're going to lose a spell slot to do it. Charm Person, fine. Create or Destroy Water, pointless. Cure Wounds, because we have the Divine Cast tree. Entangle is a waste of everyone's time. It has a very small area of effect, and the DC to overcome it with strength is very low. So the only way you're ever going to entangle anything is if you have a convenient warlock nearby to hex stuff for you. Fairy Fire is quite good, but it also requires concentration. As I should have mentioned, does entangle, which makes it even worse. Fog Cloud, fine, it's Fog Cloud, but that requires concentration. The Goodberry is a thoroughly expensive cantrip for no reason. It's a spell. It's a 4d4 heal over 4 separate times because it's 4 berries. So what you can look at that and say, well, okay, I can give it to someone else and they can heal themselves, but it is an action. So if you're healing yourself for that, you may as well take a potion or whatever. In much the same way, if you're going to use an action for it in combat, what you're looking at is, well, 4 to 16 health, and Cure Wounds is, well, 4 to 11 health. So it's a slightly more drawn out Cure Wounds, if you want to look at it that way. Generally speaking, I just ignore it. Healing Word, I mean, it'd be fine if it was a bonus action, right? But because it's an action, it's kind of pointless. Healing Word, as I just said, bonus action, standard stuff. Jump, as you normally expect, and Long Strider, which is not concentration. So that's not actually a bad spell to have to increase it by 3 meters. And Thunderwave, which is always fairly useful to blow people off stuff. So having done those spells and things, we can look at proficiencies, and as we see here, we have both medium armor and shield, which means we'll be stealing Ladle's medium armor with its hidden strength check of 10, and Shadowheart shield pretty much at the beginning of the game. You can then also get Shadowheart to buff you for another 2 AC, so you'll have 21 AC at level 1, which is quite helpful. Probably using a dagger at that point because you won't have a club. You can of course switch to a club later on, and then you'll be using your wisdom modifier, so you'll never have to worry about what type of club you're using. It always gets just immediately replaced by the modifier. It does also add the damage on if you've got fire or poison or whatever else. So you don't need much strength. You'll be using effectively strength weapons but with wisdom instead. The rest of these things are all pointless, so we can ignore them. So when it comes to skills, it's worth pointing out that all of your proficient skills and stuff only come from your race and your origin, not from your class. That said, the best one you can be looking at therefore is Folk Hero, because that has both Animal Handling as a wisdom check, Survival as a wisdom check. The other option is Guild Artisan. Looking at races, you want things with a +1 wisdom. The strongest contender is of course the Wood Elf. He comes with stealth proficiency, slightly more speed, dark vision, all the bow proficiencies, some swords but you'll never bother with them. Dexterity, of course, immune to being charmed and put to sleep. Immune to being put to sleep, resistance to charmed, and perception. Your other options are of course the human with a +1, is just generally pointless. The half elf, because you have the +1s on those stuff. And the dwarf, believe it or not, the gold dwarf comes with a +1. Generally speaking though, the wood elf is your strongest contender for a regular normal druid. Okay, let's look at stats. Strength. Generally speaking, you don't need it because you're any of the times you'll be using your club or whatever, that are being converted through shillelagh to wisdom. So basically you're replacing those things. If you are planning on using medium armor, you do need a minimum of 10. If you want, you can of course drop this down to 8 and gain an extra 2 points, which is an easy way to do it. Dexterity, generally speaking, is what you'll be using a lot of the time because that's how you'll modifier for bows, and you'll be hanging out at the back shooting stuff with a bow unless you're doing a form, which I'll talk about in a second. Concentration checks in this game are Constitution, and that means you need as much of that as you physically can, else every time anything hits you, you will lose concentration and your spell will disappear. So you may get your new fancy flame blade and then something taps you and you've lost your weapon all of a sudden. You really want as much Constitution as you can get hold of. Intelligence you don't really need. Wisdom, of course, you want as much of this as possible, not only for your spells, but also because you'll be converting things with shillelagh and all that other stuff. Charisma, you don't need it unless you're actually planning on talking to things. So now talking about forms, because this is 5e, when you change into your badger, bear, whatever you feel like, it only changes these ones. Strength, dexterity, and constitution. It leaves your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So if you're planning on always being in a shape of some form at all times, you can dump these down to 8 and put all the stuff into here. And then as you become wild shape, you will magically have just a massive buy-in. The downside to doing this, of course, is that if you get punched out of shape at any point in time, your main stats are so terrible you're just going to die. So be aware of that. Generally speaking, I tend to drop that down there and add it in there, or you can drop this out of here and put it back into there, one of the two. Depends how much time you're going to be spending in medium armor, is the general question. Right, moving on. Okay, so here we are at level 2. Congratulations, we dinged. And you begin your choices between Circle of the Land and Circle of the Moon. Circle of the Land being the spell-based version and the Moon being the wild shape version. So to begin with, you get wild shapes regardless, and this is a 2 casts per short rest action, which turns you into a badger, a spider, a wolf, or a cat. And I'll go through the stat blocks and stuff of those in a minute. As well as natural recovery, which works like the wizard spell. You can recharge half your level of spell slots. And another cantrip. Circle of the Moon comes with exactly the same wild shapes, but none of that extra spelly stuff, but just a bear, which is their signature polar bear. And the ability to change your spell slots into heals, because you can spend a lot of your time in wild shape. There's no extra spells, they're all the same. And yeah, let's have a look at the wild shapes more closely. Okay, so here we are as a level 2 druid. We'll just start going through all the stuff. For example, this is the shillelagh. Yes, indeed. We can also hit produce flame. We'll start a wild shape. So the first one we'll look at is the badger. We are now a badger, congratulations. The reason I did the flame is so that you can see that we have still going on down here, produce flame. The shillelagh has disappeared, so we aren't going to be able to willpower punch stuff with our paws. The flame doesn't magically add on to stuff. For example, I go over here and punch Gale. Thanks, Gale. You'll see that nothing was added. It was using a strength modifier though. So, the badger. The abilities wise, it has claws, which has a pushback, which is pointless. You have bite with 2d4, which is the same as the bear, interestingly enough. Of course, you have jump, which is very cute. But the main thing we're looking for is burrow, which is effectively a short-range misty step. It defies the laws of gravity, physics, and other things. You can, for example, burrow through the ocean to go somewhere else. You can burrow between platforms, you can burrow up and down ledges. You really have, as long as the ledges aren't too far away, you can. I'm not sure this will work. Out of line of sight. I'm afraid I can't burrow off the top of the hill. If I could see it, I could burrow to it. They do say, or they said in the panel, that you can burrow through doors. You can't. You can only burrow to things you can see or someone can see. So, yeah. The stat block of... Oh yes, you can also, before I move on, the most important of all things, which is take a seat. Which is cute. So here's our seated badger, and here is our character sheet. As you can see, these ones have turned around, and intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are still the same. So what you're going to notice to begin with is that the AC is terrible. You only have 13 health and 10 AC, so pretty much anything under the sun can hit you. Because you've only got 13 health, you won't be a badger for any long period of time. That said, it's probably more worth to, if you're going to start burrowing around the place, make sure that you burrow under people that are going to be after the initiative order for your another melee character. Otherwise you're just going to waste it because they just stand up and move over and hit you. The thing that's also worth noting, of course, if you are proning people consistently, or proning whatever the hell, it does give advantage and critical hits to melee characters, but it gives disadvantage to ranged characters. So be aware of what it is you're proning and why. So let's dismiss this wild shape. Thank you, Badger. Next one we're going to look at is a spider. I'm going to take a short rest because we do only have the 2 wild shapes every time you short rest. So you cannot infinitely shape in and out of stuff. You can do it 2 times, for example. You can as a... I'll shift into a spider now, so beware arachnophobes. Here is our spider. I could now, because it's a bonus action, or this doesn't have an action, and shifting in does have a bonus action, I could go up to someone, shift out, and shift in again. But that's all of my wild shapes used at that point in time, and the moment I get punched out of that wild shape, I'm dead. So the spider has 2 very, 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 very useful things. One of which is spider jump. You do not take any damage when you do this spider jump. For example, I can just go all the way through into this granite bench. Not really a sit, is it? It's more like a crunch. I can jump off this. I can't get back up again without having to go through a portal, so congratulations. This also does damage, by the way. So jumping onto things is a fantastic way of getting around. And it does about 28 damage, normally speaking. So you can be in stealth, jump off a building, land on a goblin, kill it, and not drop out of stealth. And it's a fun way of doing stuff. You can do it to bosses as well. You can do it to everything you like. And you roll a attitude check as well for just a general attack. The other great thing about being a spider is web. This is entangle. So here we go, we managed to unweb Shadowheart. Cannot move attack rolls, take advantage. Oh, I probably should have paused the game for that. Maybe someone will get webbed again in a second. But what that does mean, of course, is that they can't move. They can still attack if you're near them, but if you're firing from off a distance, they've lost their dexterity, so you do attack with advantage against them. As opposed to, for example, being prone all the time as a badger where you're not taking advantage and they can't attack. Maybe a bit garbled, I guess you get what I mean. Right, and of course there's Lunamend of all these things. Web, yes. Venomous Bite 1d8 plus poison, which is, I think, is a 1d4 or 1d6 every turn, which is very, very helpful. The stat block is more useful. You're attacking with dexterity rather than strength. You have very low constitution, so any rolling spells you have for concentration will be punched out of you very, very quickly. You have very good health and 14 AC, which is kind of okay, I guess. It's mid-range, really. So we can get rid of the spider with a little whimper every time she changes. Okay, so the last one we're going to look at is the wild-shaped wolf. Comes in with a howl. I have a little bone of contention with this. I'm not sure if you've seen many dogs walking, but it seems like they have one animation model, and just his little legs bending the wrong way. Right, so beyond that we have Inciting Howl, which is a 1-turn long strider that you can use once per battle. Kind of irrelevant. You have Exposing Bite, which gives the next attack against it a critical hit if done within melee range. Which is fine, I guess, if you've got Lae'zel hanging out with a giant two-hander, otherwise it's kind of redundant. And your regular attack is a 2d6. What's the all-important? How does it sit? Well, it's more like it's taking a shit, but there we go. And stab block. That's the wrong button. Stab block. We have one squatting dog plus 14 AC, so same as a spider, 2 less health. It uses strength to hit rather than dexterity. So yeah, beyond that, it's because it misses both the jump and it's just a regular jump. There's nothing great about it. You'd always be a spider. Alright, let's drop out a dog. And we'll have a look at the last shape you have from the regular wild shapes, which is the cat. This now highlights the main problem you get with wild shapes, is that it is changing. Hello, it is changing 3 strength. You are non-combat at the moment, but you'll often find that if your main character is a guy going around looting everything in every single box and every single thing and every single person of every single thing, and you end up with 1,000,000 swords and 1,000,000 clubs and 1,000,000 bows and 1,000,000, you have to then spend a long time individually clicking and dragging all your inventory to another character, otherwise you just physically cannot move. It really does highlight how poor the inventory system is. That said, you have 15 dex, 10 con, but you only have 12 AC and 2 health. You are effectively, it's the Find Familiar Cat spell is what you are right here. You have Claws, which does 1 damage, and a Meow, designed for drawing attention away from stuff as you sneak about the place. Have to be aware at this point that if you're using Produce Flame, because you are creating, as you see, this full sun, and there's a half sun, if I put my cat over there, the Produce Flame is putting it into full sun all the time. So you never want to have the sun up whilst you're trying to stealth around the place. It goes without saying. Does it sit? Of course it sits. It's a cat. Oh, cat in stealth is not the same as... Okay, there we go. Don't know what was going on with that. Bugs, everybody. So there we go. This is the cat. so that's the last wild shape we have. Let's move on to the Circle Land. If we go on to Circle Moon, which is what this character is now, I'll have a short rest. And we'll have a look at the Polar Bear, which should be this one. Rog, I am Polar Bear. So, it has the same stuff. It has a little cute brawling animation. Its main ability is Goading Roar. This is a 9-meter Wisdom save AoE taunt. What that means is the enemies have to attack you on the next 2 turns. However, the AI doesn't mean they have to run up to you in order to attack you, so they will just scatter off and stand where they wish to and then just look at you if they're melee rather than shooting you with a bow or whatever the hell. As it says, 2d4, same as the Badger. Stat block wise, we have 12 AC, which is very poor. 30 health, 10 more than a spider. 19 strength, we're rolling with a +4 to hit, which is quite nice. No dexterity, 16 comms, so that's a +3. So what you'll tend to be using is Bark Skin. Now Bark Skin puts your AC to 16. You can't then add on Shield of Faith on top of that or other such stuff because it literally fixes it at 16. But you at least stand some chance of keeping hold of it when you inevitably get punched, and that will keep you going for a little bit. The does it sit question, of course, is here he is. He's like a very sad, morose bear overlooking the world of Nautilus. Okay, so we've managed to ding level 3 as our Circle of the Land, and you get the same spells regardless of whether you are moon or land. These are your base spells. Your bonus spells should be here in these ones. Unfortunately, there's a small problem in that they overlap a lot of the time in the base spells, but we'll get to that in a second. Right, so Bark Skin increases your armor up to 16. No more, just 16 requires concentration. It would be nice if you could have this cast on you and then you shift into an animal. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. It's just you that has them. I haven't seen Shadowheart or Gale with them. As such, it's a concentration check, so you can be a bear with Bark Skin, and then when you get punched, you'll drop it, and then you'll be very sad. Dark Vision is just Dark Vision. Enhanceability is a waste of everyone's time. Flame Blade is 3d6 Wisdom, so again, it's like Shillelagh, you now have a fire Wisdom weapon with modifiers for attack and damage. It is of course concentration, so you'll be using the 21 AC medium armor shield build, and then you will still get punched and you will still drop it. Flaming Sphere is very helpful. It is effectively a minion that has 2d6 fire AoE around it at the end of each turn, and you can punch people. It seems to attack 2 times in that it will do 2d6 fire damage, and then the enemies will roll a check whether they wish to accept more than 2d6 fire damage, and pass or fail, they will then accept that result. So it's probably broken at that point. And is again a concentration check, which means you don't want to be anywhere near it, otherwise you will be, it won't damage you, but enemies will shoot you and then you will lose concentration and it will dispel and you'll be sad. Heat Metal is like Witch Bolt. You 2d8 fire an enemy and then you just reapply every turn you wish for it to continue, assuming you don't then get shot and lose concentration because every spell is concentration. It does put disadvantage on it, so that's fine. Hold Person is the same, Restoration is the same. Moonbeam is very good but also very strange. The damage is not recorded anywhere on the log, it just does it. So generally speaking, you can prone something with grease, for example, and then moonbeam the top of them, and then you can just watch them burn, pretty much. Pass Without a Trace is very helpful. Concentration required if you're going to be, for example, a cat or a raven, and you're going to be flying around. You can pass Without a Trace on yourself, giving yourself +10 stealth, and then flying around the map, not being detected by anything. Protection from Poison doesn't require concentration. Is also available on the Cleric list. So it's a good one for Shadowheart to be casting around the place. You simply don't have enough spell slots to waste on doing this. But yes, it's quite helpful, especially if you're going through poison traps and stuff. Spike growth is good. It's what Entangle wishes it could be. It is a very large surface area. Reduces people's movement speed to a very slow pace, and you can do a surprising amount of damage with it, actually. Although it does require concentration yet again, it's fine. I don't recommend being in it. Let's have a look at the Circle of the Land. You'll notice now that we have Arctic gives you Hold Person and Spike Growth. If we then go to Customize, we have Spike Growth and Hold Person. You have no new spells. You have wasted your choice by choosing Arctic. I don't know what they'd give you further on down the line if you'd have different spells coming in at different levels, which you should do because it's the same list, but for the time being, it's pointless to take. Much the same thing, you have Coast, which allows you to use Mirror Image and Misty Step, which is really, 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 really good. There's nothing quite as good as Mirror Image, as a doesn't require concentration. There was a level 2 spell, being able to mirror image yourself as a bear and then charging in, really very effective for keeping yourself alive. Desert again is Blur. Okay, I didn't do anything, but the game just did something. Blur, disadvantage on attacks and silence. Not very helpful. You don't need even more concentration checks. Forest is Bark Skin, which you already have, and Hold Person, which you already have. Grassland, Invisibility, and Pass Out of the Trace, so Invisibility, but not the other one. Mirror Image is fine, and Spike Growth, but why would you bother that? You can go back to Coast. Mountain, yes, the one I just looked at, and Acid Arrow, which you don't need, and Darkness, which is no point to. And Underdark, which is Web, which you could turn into a spider and spit endlessly. And Misty Step. So again, really, your only choice for the beginning of the game is Coast. Especially during early access. Whether it changes later or not, I don't know. Well, it should do, but I can't tell you because we don't know. Okay, so here is the level 3 if you were the Circle of the Moon. Don't worry about the different character, it's obviously natural. I tried to do something with stats and things, it didn't work. I don't recommend using any of these things. Just go back to the one with the Wood Elf. The only benefit is the 16 Constitution. Beyond that, the rest of it's just a waste of time. As you can see, the same spell list as Circle of the Land, except you don't have any other bonuses. And we'll move on to level 4 of Moon. Okay, so here we are with the level 4 Moon Druid. We appear to have dropped to Piercing on the floor. I don't want to ask about how, quite, or why. If you're one of the handful of people that's ever managed to watch this, that's a fairly good joke. So no new spells. What we have instead is a Deep Rother. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that properly. And the Raven, you also get a bonus cantrip. And your feat, of course, most, if not all of these feats have no impact at all if you're doing a Shape Druid, because they just don't do anything for you. In which case you probably just want to do more Wisdom. If I was a sensible person, I would have had 16 Wisdom to start with, then I could put that to 18, but I wasn't on this character. So let's move on from there. Okay, so here we are again at our favourite little high point, and I will show you the Deep Rother to begin with. I believe that is this one. Excellent, so this is the cow. Oh, I forgot to do the ladders. Oh, doesn't matter. So this is a 1d6 charge. Now what this means is you can charge to someone, or you can charge past them. You can hit everything in your way, as it says, attacking all hostile creatures. It's the closest thing you're going to get to a 1d6 AoE you can find. And you end up over there. You have, of course, a standard Gore, which is 3d4. Even though he charges forward, he does go backwards. And you have Dancing Lights, which is concentration required cantrip. So at no point should you be using the Dancing Lights. If you want to some combat in the Underdark where you're fighting in this stuff, you use produce light. I've already forgotten what the word is. Flame, there you go. So he sits down. He's very cute. He's a bit confused about the whole situation. So, produce flame, not a difficult name. He now comes in with exactly the same problem as the bear and all the other ones. He has 10 AC and 23 health. So unless you're putting buckskin on this guy, he is going to die, and your amazing level 4 shapeshift is not going to stay shapeshifted for a while. Yeah. 18 strength, 10 dex, 14 constitution. It's fine. You're not going to make any dexterity saves, which is a small problem. And only 8 meters of movement. But you're going to be charging about the place anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And that there is the Rother. Now he does have a stealth motion. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to this. Last thing to look at is the Raven. Yeah, it is much. 81 of 60. Alright, I have to go and do this and then come back again. Cut edit. Okay, so here we are back again. Let's try again. Here is the Raven. Its stealth is just to fly slightly further across the floor. It has Rend Vision, 1d6, Blind, as well as Beak Attack, 2d4, but you'll probably mostly be doing Rend Vision. The only reason you'd ever be using your Raven in combat is because of the fly action that only requires speed. You can fly up stuff, you can fly down stuff. So what this will mean is that you will most likely be hiding as you then fly, and you don't drop out of stealth as you fly. You'll maintain it. You can then rend the guy's vision who is there, and then you will fly away and resume hiding. This is because you have, well, 13 health, but 16 AC, which is a fairly acceptable amount of AC. At least buckskin does no difference to you. 18 with Shield of Faith. So you can at least dodge a fair amount of stuff. And your strength of 6, you're of course attacking with Dexterity. And yeah. So there's the bird. In the does it sit question. Yep, just a perched bird. It probably would have been better to have a ladder around here as well, but it doesn't matter. Okay, that ends all of the shapes looking at stuff. We have some spells we can look at. One, we have Flame Blade. It's a blade of flame. Has replaced your other weapon. So if you're going to do anything or you get hit by something, then that's going to disappear and you're going to be weaponless. Fantastic. I think I need to just short rest and then I can show you Barkskin. Of course, you can only have one concentration weapon at a time. Now our thing is kind of a bit weird. If we now shift into the bear, for example, we're now like we're a Pooh Bear, basically, is what we are. He's a Glastonbury bear, if you want to be nice about it, a festival bear, or he's a turd bear. That's basically what we're playing with. It has increased our AC up to 16 now, which is 4 better than it was before, so you now stand a fairly decent chance of, well, not dying in one round at least. You can't be increased beyond that, of course, so I'd probably recommend protection from good and evil rather than anything else. Let's move out. The last one we can use in this section because of... Actually, I'll show that one in a second. So this is Moonbeam. I'll Moonbeam myself. And I will now promptly die. I made a saving throw. But I lost concentration because I moonbeamed myself. Yeah. Well, that's concentration in a nutshell, pretty much. 1 tick of damage and I dropped it, even with 16. Okay, so the last spell to look at before we go to the very special secret thing you get being an Illithid is Flame Sphere. And he's a little thing and he rolls around. He doesn't damage you, of course, but he's just constantly pumping out flame. It's also worth pointing out that you can bug him at the moment to create an endless plane of fire. I'll throw that in at the end of the video to show you what I ended up breaking my camp into, which is just a sea of lava. It only lasts 10 turns, and the damage is done around you. If you have 2 flame spheres, then only 1 is taken. So you can't double stack the aura, which is kind of a shame. It should do, really, because you have 2 of them. So yes, you have Flaming Sphere Ball. Oh yes, the final thing to look at is quite how effective spike growth is, and how you should always be... Oh no, it's concentration, isn't it? So it's probably going to drop concentration pretty much instantly. But of course you can get out of it by jumping, so that's not going to be a problem. That said, 1 tick of damage and concentration is broken. So you can imagine trying to do combat, right? This is a dwarf, which I did specifically for concentration with +3. You know, where is it? 17 constitution. That's what I went in with. Intentionally have... Oh, I didn't do the stats properly. It doesn't matter, but the point is, you're going to have less than 3, right? Generally speaking, as a druid, you're not going to have like 18 constitution at level 4. It's not going to happen. So everything is going to drop. Everything and everything is going to drop, which makes their spells completely pointless. Like concentration. You can only move Moonbeam once, by the way. So you can drop it and then move it once and then it disappears, and that's it. Concentration and concentration. So yeah. Right, let's look at the Illithid thing. Okay, so here we are again with the Wood Elves come back. And what we're going to look at is the Aberrant Shape. Now, this is what you get if you do the Illithid conversations. You have the Illithid wisdom checks, and you need to do them only a couple of times, really, in a row to make sure you end up picking up the Aberrant Shape. And this is what you turn into. He says, failing the button. Isn't he wonderful? Now we have purple and neon green Intellect Devourer. It's worth pointing out that, okay, so it has claws, which is 2d4 melee. It is actually a ranged shape. It is the only ranged shape there is, at least in early access in the moment. This is 1d6 plus 2 psychic damage. It works like a standard bow or firebolt or whatever. If I turn around and shoot Gale with it, it uses Dexterity rather than Wisdom or anything else. So there's that. Devour Intellect is a melee range, and it works very strange. First hit reduces their intellect below 4 by... Okay, it reduces it by 11, and then that's it. That's your turn, does nothing. Then if you hit them again on the second turn, if their intellect is now below 4, it takes 2d10 psychic damage. Okay, and then after that, because it only lasts for a turn, it then goes right back up again, and you have to do it. So you're basically doing 2d10 every other turn, assuming you can reduce it, and you can kind of get a stun occasionally, if it gets stunned. I don't know why the stun does or doesn't work. It's very strange. It's like an oh shit button more than anything. You'll be spending your life shooting things, and if something comes near you, you devour intellect, and then you manage to succeed by dropping it, then you can devour intellect on the next turn, and then basically you'll just be running away. You won't be doing anything more melee based. Stat block wise, 6 strength, very small, 14 dex, 13 constitution, very low. Only a +2, it's only a +3 to hit. 21 health, yes, 12 AC, fine. But as I said, it is predominantly a ranged shape. And if you're going to be ranged, you may as well just use a bow at this point, let's be honest. Like, you can get +4 at this point rather than +2 psychic. I don't understand it myself. It seems very weird. But yeah, it looks pretty, seems fun, but it is overall pointless. Right, so let's move on to the camp where I can show you how I burn everything to the floor. Okay, so here we are in camp. The first thing we're going to do is drop a spiked ground on the floor. Nice. I'm going to run away a bit. Now we're going to pick up Gale. And Gale is going to drop a flaming sphere in the middle of the spike trap. And then we're going to pause the game. And now we're going to wait. And yeah, what we do is just wait at this point. And then in around about 10 or 15 minutes, I think we have to drop turn once. That has enough turn to start properly burning. Oh, there we go, it's coming out that corner. We can go back in again now. Now you just wait 10 or so minutes. And here he comes. This is it, pretty much. This never stops. And then if you save the game and reload the game after it's got sufficiently on fire, you will find that the spike trap's gone, the ball's gone, but the fire is still there and it's still self-propagating. And yeah, the whole place just becomes a complete ocean of flame. And rather than speed up time for you, I could actually just flick straight to the final shot. So yeah, here we go. This is a couple of minutes later, pretty much. What we have is an ocean of fire. And it won't go out. You can't get rid of it. All you can do is reload the game. Yeah. So I hope you found the video fun or interesting at the very least. And if you want to see more of that stuff, throw us a follow, throw us a like, leave a comment so the algorithm knows that it should be looking for me, for other people to have a look at the video. And yeah, I'll see you later. Thanks very much.